Hi, friends. Welcome to the Do Life podcast. I'm your host, Life Coach Layla. Today, I want to talk about stress, what it is, why it happens, how it can be good for you, what bad stress looks like, its effects, and how to combat and or prevent it. So let's get started. Let's look at the definition of stress. Stress is your psychological and physical response to stressors or pressure, strain, things like that. So knowing that, there's a few different things that you need to know about stress. Number one is stress can be good for you. We hear about all the bad things and the problems that stress creates. And usually what that is from is long-term stress or chronic stress. So stress can be good for you in multiple ways. One, stress on your body is basically to prepare you for fight or flight. Back in our caveman days, we were running from tigers. If we saw a tiger, our body would do these things physically to prepare us for fight or flight. So if we're going to probably not fight the tiger, we're probably going to run away from it. Your body's prepared. So what it does is let's go into the physiological response to stress. So when you're in a stressed out situation, there's a group of neurons in the center of your body that activate your adrenal glands. And that adrenaline affects your body in multiple different ways. So it sends signals to receptors in your big muscle parts like your heart and your legs, and it dilates the blood vessels. So more blood is pumping to your legs and your heart. So you can run faster, you can provide more blood to the areas that need it to run faster, things like that. It also signals other organs that are considered luxury organs in a time of survival, like your digestive and reproductive glands and systems, shut down basically. So when you're in a super stressed out mode, you're not digesting food. Your digestive system shuts down, but it slows down dramatically. So the other more important integral parts of your body for survival can function at a higher level. Hopefully this makes sense. So your pupils dilate, your heart rate fastens, your digestive system slows down, your reproductive organs slows down. And the reason you need to know this is so you can better understand what's happening in your body when you're stressed, when you go to induce stress deliberately, which we'll get into in a little bit, or try to reduce stress drastically, which we'll also get into in a little bit. So understanding the physiological responses in your body as far as why it is reacting the way it's reacting will help you regulate a little bit better in the long term. So, we'll talk about your parasympathetic nervous systems and how it controls your face and your eyes and your throats your throat. So when you're trying to control your natural reaction to the stress, there's things that you can do to dilate your eyes, which will reverse that. And again, we'll get into ways to combat stress in a little bit, but I wanted to go over the physiological response to stress in your body. So let's talk about good stress. Now that you know why your body does what it does, what would be a good reason to be stressed? So good stress in your body is a handful of things. So you can induce stress in your body deliberately by going into an ice bath or taking a cold shower or exercising or actually mentally putting yourself in a stressful situation so you can better prepare for stress in a not deliberate situation, if that makes sense. So when you're exercising, you're putting stress on your muscles, your body. It causes inflammation. And everybody says inflammation's so bad. Long-term inflammation is bad, yes. Short-term inflammation is good for you. You need to have that up and down and those regulations in your body. In talking about why stress is good for you, when you exercise, you get stressed, your body's stressed, and it's good to have that regulation for obvious reason. We're not going to go into all of that. when you are taking ice baths, when you're doing quick breathing and you're putting yourself in those stressful situations so you can control mentally how you respond in stressful situations in a controlled environment. It helps regulate how you respond to stressful situations in a not controlled environment. So let's say we're doing deep breathing. Your breath has so much to do with your stress and your ability to control somewhat your stress levels. And I know a lot of people say, oh, you need to be mindful and do meditation. And yes, those are all great things. I'm a certified trainer in meditation, and I will still say that that's not what you need to be doing in the moment. You know, if someone comes to you and they're like, we need to talk, you can be like, whoa, let me meditate first. Let's chill out for a second. I got to do some deep breathing exercises. No, you're not going to do that. I mean, maybe you will, but that's weird. Don't do that. Unless the person you're talking to was 100% in alignment with that and understands, and then you're probably not as stressed to talk to them anyway. So anyway, stop. Uh, let's talk real talk. So in a stressful situation, you're at work, your boss needs to talk to you, you're not going to be able to go meditate. So while meditation is great in the long-term effect of minimizing stress in general, when you're in a stressful situation, the number one thing you can do is learn how to control your breath. And we'll get back into that in a minute. My ADD is doing its thing again. So we're talking about good stress, why it's good, how to induce good stress. We talked about breathing. If you're, fast breathing, like almost a hyperventilation state, if anybody's heard of Wim Hof or Tumo breathing, it's kind of that where you're breathing high in stressful situations. So like taking an ice bath, you're going to want to do that breathing, and then you can control how you are responding. Obviously, the physiological responses to those situations, to exercise, to eating, to ice baths, are going to be not as controllable to a degree. So there are some things that you can do to control stress in the moment. So let's talk about cortisol. Everyone has labeled that as the stress hormone, and it's not entirely untrue. So cortisol regulates an awful lot in your body. It regulates your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your immune system, your digestive system, your mental health, your cognitive ability, specifically in your prefrontal cortex, your ability to make decisions and remember and learn new things are affected. Anxiety, mood, enhanced fears, poor sleep. There's a lot of things that it regulates. It works towards its purpose. It works like it's supposed to. We talk about short-term stress. It's not a bad thing. So, cortisol gets a bad rep because, oh, it's too much cortisol, too much this. It's so negative, and it's not negative. It's there for a reason. And when it's doing its job and you're using it for its intended purpose, it's amazing. Which again is supposed to be for short term. Like your body's response to stress is a fight or flight. It's preparing you to fight or flight. And if you're not doing either of those, you'll see like you'll start having tremors and shakes. If, like there's been a couple times where I'm driving and somebody in front of me or next to me does something stupid, you swerve and you get out of the way because you didn't physically move. Your hands start shaking and you can feel the stress in your body. Like you can feel it because it's meant to be an action. It's preparing you for movement, whether it's fighting or running away or whatever. It's preparing you for that action. And so when you are in a stressed out situation and you don't take action, you'll find yourself shaking. There's a lot of times where I've seen people like in arguments and it doesn't get physical and they walk away and they're just stressed and they're shaking and they're crying. And those are normal responses to have in those situations because your body was preparing you to do something and you didn't. That's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that just because you're stressed, you should physically, you should end it we're not going to say any of those things. I'm just saying that that's what your body is preparing you to do. So whether or not you choose to do that is fine. You can go work out. If you're super stressed out in a situation, a lot of times going and and punching a pillow or just doing some push-ups or burpees or something will release that stored up energy, and it'll give your body the signal that, okay, we did what we're supposed to, like, good job, like you're patting it on the head, okay, and then it can calm down. There's also a lot of other different ways that you can calm down, but first I want to go into why you hear so much about chronic stress and why that stress has a bad rap, because it does have so many negative effects in the long-term situation. Again, stress is supposed to be short and sweet and minimal. And when you're in stressful situations for long terms, you are uh, in a high stressful job, you can't get along with your coworkers. Every time you see somebody, it builds your blood pressure. You can't necessarily escape these stressful environments. So what does that do to your body long term, especially like people in poor relationships and things like that? Um, so we talked about the stress hormone cortisol and what it regulates. And when it's dysregulated, all of these things will be affected. So again, when your body prepares for that fight or flight, it slows down the process of some of the other organs. And it's shown in scientific studies with chronic stress patient, the prefrontal cortex of their brain actually shrinks, like physically shrinks. And that is in charge of your memory, your focus, your ability to learn new things. Because, of course, if you're getting chased by a tiger in the wild, you're not trying to identify plants and learning things. So it shuts down that portion of your brain so it can alert other portions like your tunnel vision, your focus. And those are the things that get amplified. But in a chronic situation, that part of your brain is shut down so much, so long that you actually shrink your brain. Like, that's so scary to me because I think about, like, I worry all the time. Am I stressed? I'm one of those people, I'm like a habitual procrastinator, and I got called out on this hardcore the other day in researching something. And it was one of the things that actually uh, motivated me to do this episode on stress, is because I felt personally attacked as a habitual procrastinator. It was brought to my attention that that is a self-induced form of stress, which brings all of the chemicals and things, and it's almost like taking a drug. So I don't do drugs, and I very minimally do alcohol anymore. So it was really kind of shocking to hear that my procrastination is a form of doing drugs, because I'm getting that thrill and that stress of needing to accomplish something right away. And I just thought that was rude. Uh, just kidding. Not really. But I thought that was important because I would have never known that or thought that. But it makes all the sense in the world, because when I am super stressed and trying to do something last minute, I'm work at my peak performance, because your body goes through all the physiological changes to prepare you for stress, which helps you focus and helps you do the things that you need to do. So putting yourself in a deliberate state of stress to function better is one of the best neurotropics available. I take all these different nootropics and brain pills to amplify things. I even take one for focus, but it doesn't give me that rush that I get when I'm late for something. And I hate that. And I don't want that for you. And so maybe now that we all understand that that's a thing that we do, and we are all rudely called out on it and maybe more aware of it, we'll be better at planning and trying to minimize our procrastination levels. I, for one, am super offended by that helpful information, and will be doing my best to make better plans and not procrastinate as much in the future. So that was just a little tidbit of information that I wanted to share with you. But yeah, so your ability to learn new things and remember things. So, people that are super stressed out, they can't really function cognitively. And I'm not saying that they're like in a vegetative state, but they have a hard time making decisions. They're super irritable. They can't remember as much, because, like, I always thought it was just because I was so busy and couldn't remember anything because I have so much going on in my brain. No, it's just because you're stressed. and that part of your brain is shrunken. Crazy, which again also leads to, poor sleep, irritable moods, all these other things. So now that we understand what stress is, good stress looks like, bad stress looks like, what it does, what it affects, let's talk about some ways to management. I want to give you the tools to de-stress appropriately. So let's talk about long-term tools, things that you can do today to help minimize stress in the long run. And these are the things that you hear about most frequently. And of course, meditation. So when you learn how to meditate, you learn how to calm yourself. And I know I talk about how I'm a trained facilitator in the 6-phase meditation system and all that fun stuff. And everyone's like, do a meditation. I want you to know that I am working on doing and recording several different meditations as a mermaid. So my mermaid version will be doing Monday mermaid meditations. I haven't exactly figured out if it's just going to be like the first Monday of the month or every Monday or whatever. But just so everyone knows that I am in the process of creating an episode specifically on meditation, in addition to regular meditations that you guys can follow. So if that's something you're interested in, you can go to my website at www.layladawndoslife.com and sign up for my newsletter. That way you can be informed when we start doing all the other fun meditations and things. So with that being said, meditation is absolutely something that you can do long-term to de-stress for the future. I'll give you some tools to de-stress like in the moment, but right now I want to talk about some things that you can do to de-stress regularly in your life. Gratitude and forgiveness are different things. And I know a lot of people are like, how is forgiveness going to de-stress me? When I think about who I need to forgive and what they did to me, it immediately puts me in a stressful state. I will be doing a full episode on forgiveness here in the near future, because the act of learning forgiveness for me was the most profound thing that I have found that made drastic changes in my life and my everyday ability to be de-stressed and calm. So I'm probably going to do that like next episode, because I think the two go hand in hand. So forgiving someone doesn't mean you're accepting what they did is right. It doesn't mean you're reliving that moment. It just means that you release that situation and you're not holding on to that burden. And, if someone breaks into your house, it's okay to forgive them. You still need to press charges and they still need to be punished for that. And you're not condoning their actions or saying that it's okay, but you are letting that go inside of you. And again, we'll get into some tools, but the best way is to write down your forgiveness and your gratitude. Gratitude is another one you hear a lot of people talk about. What is gratitude? There's actual scientific studies that show the art of writing down even the smallest things you're grateful for. I'm grateful for this glass of water that I have next to me. I'm grateful for my silence or my internet or my Wi-Fi. I'm grateful that my shoes don't have holes anymore. Little things like that. Even the smallest, most insignificant thing that you can think of, the act of writing down what you're grateful for has such an impactful, profound psychological impact that you aren't even aware of. So having a gratitude / forgiveness routine in your system will long-term de-stress you. You're not going to notice the differences right away. Again, when I started doing forgiveness, I didn't notice any kind of difference right away. It wasn't until I got cut off in traffic and my husband was like, who are you? And I was like, well, they're obviously in a hurry. I hope their family's okay. Maybe something happened. And he was like, I don't understand. He's like, you would have cussed them up and down all day, every day for cutting you off. Like, I don't know who this person is sitting next to me. And it was that moment where I was like, oh, he's right. I would have. I don't know what changed. I don't know why I'm so calm and accepting of whatever their situation might be. And then I realized that it was probably the forgiveness practice that I was doing every day that I've noticed that I don't have to do a forgiveness practice for the most part. I just automatically understand and identify and forgive. Like, instead of being like angry at the car in front of me, I was just like, oh, something's probably happening and there's a reason for that, or, whatever. So it's not something that you're going to necessarily notice as a change right away, but the longer you do it, the more impactful it is and the overall more calm you'll be. Obviously, we already did a whole episode on sleep and how sleep helps your ability to de-stress and calm down. So I'm not going to get into all of that, but you can look it up. There's a million different reasons why having a good night's sleep is so important for cognitive function and just overall everything every day. Eating well. When you're eating healthy foods, non-inflammatory foods, you're not just de-stressing your body, but you're also de-stressing your mind. There's been a lot of links to poor diet with poor mental health, and I have noticed that firsthand. I notice when I don't eat properly, my mental health, my energy, so it's not just a physical thing. What you put into your body is what you're nourishing your body with. You nourish your body, you nourish your brain with the foods that you put in it. So it's kind of a no-brainer that when you put poor food in your body, your brain's going to react to that poorly. Same thing as your body. Poor foods, your food is supposed to be energy. And if you're not giving it healthy energy, you're not going to get healthy energy back. So it's just it kind of works. And when we talk about good stress and bad stress, having a poor diet leads to chronic stress in your body and in your brain. So take that information and do what you want with it. But eating a proper diet will help de-stress both your body and your brain. Okay. So some other ways that you can de-stress are yoga, practicing being present, your mindfulness. It's separate from meditation or yoga. Being mindful is not worrying about the future, not stressing about the past. It's being here, being present, and being aware of where you are and what you're doing this moment and enjoying it. Also, taking up a hobby or doing something that you actually enjoy. You know, so many people, they get up, they go to work, they come home, they take care of the kids, they go to bed, and they do it over and over again. There's no enjoyment. There's no no, I don't want to say happiness, because you take care of your kids and you have your moments and there's happiness there, but you're not doing something that you enjoy. So having a hobby or something that you enjoy and you can fully engage in is going to help you de-stress, because when you're in that hobby, if you're sitting there and you're playing guitar, you're present. You're not thinking about the outside world. You're thinking about what you're doing. So when you're doing your hobby or you're doing something that you enjoy, you're being present. So those things are separate, but they're also not. So that's why I mentioned them independently. Socializing is something I thought was kind of funny, because I always thought socializing was a stressful situation for me. I got to go out, I got to do this. The act of socializing itself seems just daunting to me. 90% of the time, I don't want to. Uh, and I know I'm not alone there. There's so many people that are like, yeah, I agreed to do that, when I don't know who she was that said that they wanted to go to that thing Saturday night, but I'm not that same person anymore. And I identify with that. And I know so many of the people I know and interact with are the same. But I do know that a lot of type A personalities like myself and a lot of other people I know, we get so tunnel visioned on our work and we're focused on what we're doing and we've got all these projects and we're doing all the things all the time that we forget to socialize. And there's a chemical in your body, tachykinin. I think it's tachykinin. Either way, it's a chemical in your body that actually it forms when you're in isolation too much. And this is so crazy to me, because I hate that this exists, because I would just be so happy in my own little world to myself without this chemical that does these stupid things that makes me a human and have to interact with people. But it's what it does is, when the longer you're in isolation, it creates um this fear, this paranoia, this irritability. And the more tachykinin you have, the more these things are. So you see people who they don't socialize, they don't interact, they go home, they get up, they go to work, they come home, they drink beers and they sit in front of the TV. They don't really interact with anybody. They're super irritable. They can't really remember anything. A lot of times they have paranoia and get off my lawn. I'm just saying that, and those are the kind of people that they're overly paranoid, they're super irritable, and they don't want to socialize. Like, it makes you afraid to socialize. So it's really important that you get yourself out there and you socialize. And you don't have to go to parties or big events. If that's not a thing that you want to do, you don't have to force yourself to do that. But just having coffee with a friend and interacting with someone that you genuinely care about, that makes you feel good. When we talked about doing hobbies and things that you enjoy, hanging out with people you enjoy. If you don't enjoy a party scene or a big gathering, I'm not telling you to do that, because that is going to be more stressful and the opposite of what you need to do. It will keep the tachycardia down, but you don't have to subject yourself to that for that purpose. Again, having a coffee date, just meeting somebody, when you give them a hug, you hear about oxytocin and serotonin and all the things. Just hugging someone that you genuinely care about does so much for your mental well-being and your physiological well-being that you're not even aware of. And I can't begin to explain, because I don't want to make this a 2-hour long podcast. So I just want to say that hanging out with people that you love, doing things you love, socializing, yoga, meditation, and don't forget good hydration. Make sure you're drinking water too. Like, that's a big thing, is, food and water intake, because when you're dehydrated, your brain's not functioning and all the other things. So hydration. So those are all things that you can do, like, long term, to keep your body and your brain in a calmer state. But what happens when somebody's in your face? Your boss needs to talk to you right now. We have all these things that are stressing us out in the moment that we need to deal with immediately. And I said earlier that your breathing has a direct effect on your body's stress levels, mostly because your breath and your diaphragm is connected to your heart, and your heart speeds regulate your stress response. When your heart's going fast, your body's stressed. When your heart's going slow, it's relaxed. When you breathe in, your lungs expand, your heart shrinks. And obviously, the opposite happens when you breathe out, your heart expands. So when your heart is smaller, it's going to beat faster, just because science. When your heart is bigger, it'll beat slower. Even if you're in a stress state, it's still going to beat faster than it normally would, but it's still going to beat on a slower, faster scale. If that makes sense, it should. So one of the things that you can do to control your stress is to control your breathing. And there are a lot of different breathing techniques out there. Some of them are some of them are scientifically backed. Some of them are a bit metaphysical. So like my buddy Juan Pablo Barahona, he does quantum breathing. And a lot of it is rooted in deep psychology, where it has certain effects on your heart and how it regulates your body and what you're doing. And then a lot of it is symbolic. You're fire breathing, and you're pushing the negativity back to the earth to transmute it. So it's a lot. I highly, highly recommend looking into different breathing techniques. So I've done the quantum breath, I've done the pranayama, I've done all kinds of different, like, shamanic breath works, and there's been some that have induced psychological states. Like, I've done a DMT induced breath work, which was insane to me, but you can achieve heightened and enlightened mental states through just breathing. So if I can breathe in a manner that makes me essentially trip, I can absolutely control my breathing in a manner that makes me calm. There's an actual scientific definition of breathing. It's called the physiological sigh, or the extended exhalation. And you'll see this in children that are crying, or even yourself as an adult when you're, like, super going through it and you're crying, uncontrollably sobbing. You do that, you breathe in like multiple times, and then you breathe out longer. And that's your body's subconscious way of calming itself. So that double breath in, double, triple, quadruple breath in, or whatever, is tricking your brain and your body into calming itself. So you're slowing down your heart rate. You're telling yourself that it's okay, that we're good, we can be calm. And that can be done deliberately. So your boss says, I need to talk to you. If you can't say, I need to go meditate about it first, you could just be like, maybe don't let them hear you do that. You can do it silently. Like if you can do it through your nose, it's usually inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth is the proper way to do it. Obviously, when you're uncontrollably sighing, you're probably full of snot and you can't breathe in as well through your nose. So you do it through your mouth. And that's why I use that as an example. But if you're deliberately doing it, breathe in through your nose and then long exhale. That long exhale lowers your diaphragm, expands your heart, slows your heart rate down, sends signals to your brain. It's okay. If you can smile while doing it, that's even better, because I mentioned the parasympathetic nervous system earlier and how it controls your facial muscles, like your eyes. I was going to say your ears, but like your eyes and your mouth and your throat. So like when you're super stressed, your digestive system slows down, you swallow a lot, it feels like your throat's getting dry. You hear that a lot when people are talking about being stressed out because you're not producing as much saliva. And the reason I mention this is because when we're stressed, our pupils shrink. They tunnel vision and they hyper focus. And again, that's for survival mode. If you're running away from a tiger or you're fighting someone, you want to be hyper focused on that thing in front of you. When you go to calm yourself deliberately, if you're trying to de-stress by having tunnel vision, you can move your head, but not your eyes. It widens your range of view. And that it's just a small way to kind of de-stress your body, because you're sending signals from your eyes to your brain that we need to dilate our pupils so that way we can see our peripheral, and then that starts to de-stress. So when you're doing things like the double breathing, the long exhalation, you're not moving, you're opening your peripheral. These are things that you can do in the moment to kind of de-stress and thwart off the response of stress before it gets too extreme. And again, being mindful, whenever you can feel your body start to stress, you usually feel your heart pounding and it feels like everything's caving in and turning in on itself. When you feel that happening, being mindful and being present, like, okay, what is happening? If I'm stressed out because my boss wants to talk to me, it's almost an anxiety response to the future, to a future hypothetical situation that may or may not be real. And having the cognitive ability to be like, okay, he could be wanting to talk to me about a promotion. It could be a good thing. He might just be adding more work for me to do. So there's, your brain goes through this whole array of emotion when certain things happen that cause you to stress out. So if you can be mindful of the situation and be like, okay, this is not necessarily a stressful situation. I'm just stressed about potential outcomes that may or may not even be relevant. And so when you can bring yourself back to presence and be like, okay, I don't need to be stressed right now. I will save that for after the conversation takes place. If it's something that happens that I need to be stressed out about, I'll be stressed out then. But right now, it could be a good thing. It could be an annoying thing. It could be a detrimental thing. I don't know. And I don't need to be anxious about the unknown. And the more we can kind of convince ourselves that, the better off we'll be. So I've given you a couple solutions for in the moment and long-term de-stressing. Again, if you're in a chronic situation that's constantly stressing you out, obviously the ideal situation would be to figure out how you can better your life, your whatever your triggers are, whatever your stressors are. Is there solutions to that? Can you look for another job? You can apply to hundreds of jobs and maybe you get one and it's better than where you're at right now, if that's the problem. If your family situation is stressful, is there a solution? Is there somebody that can help you? Can you take turns with a friend watching each other's kids once a week just to give you a day of peace and quiet? Can your partner share more of the responsibility? So what's your situation? And really take a deep dive and look into, okay, where am I at? What's stressing me out? What can I do about it? So, there's all these things and tips and tricks that you can do to de-stress situationally, but there's not going to be any better solution than getting out of that situation. And I understand that that's not always an option, but sometimes we think it's not an option, but we haven't really thought about it. Like, we've just kind of accepted it for what it is, but have you really sat and thought about, okay, why am I so stressed out? Let me pinpoint, where is this coming from? Okay, here it is. What can I do about it? Is this something I can change? Yes or no? If the answer is no, is there something else that you can do to make it better? You can't get out of this job. You signed a 2-year contract. Is there something you can do to minimize the stress? Can you hire an assistant to take the workload? Can you, something. So always kind of look at your situation, what it is and what you can do about it, if there's something that you can make better. And last but not least, supplements. There's a handful of supplements on the market. I like to use them very sparingly. You don't want to make any of these habit forming. You don't want to rely on these things to calm you down or de-stress. But they can be very useful in certain instances where, you're in this project and you're super stressed out about it and you need to sleep at night. You can take a supplement to help relax and calm you down so you can function and get that deep rest that you need so you can tackle it the next day in a peaceful, more restful state, which will ultimately help de-stress the situation. You can take ashwagandha is a good one for regulating. You can also take L-theanine. I like magnesium for everything. I've talked about the Bioptimizers version of magnesium because it does seem to de-stress me quite a bit and helps me get the most amazing sleep. I will link it down below. It is an affiliate link, so if you purchase from there, I do get a commission, but I have been talking about them forever, and I love that brand. And anyway, this isn't an advertisement for them, but I'm just saying, I would suggest, if you want to go to, there's a website called examine.com where you can actually look at the different studies of the different medicines out there. They can tell you what the study was done on. Was it done on pregnant women, preteens, children, grown men, women, whatever. And it tells you the different studies of the different medications. So if there's any supplements or anything that you're thinking about taking, obviously I'm not a doctor. I'm not here you should talk to your doctor about starting or stopping any medication. So that's my disclaimer there. I think I've covered pretty much everything. Let's see. So those were my suggestions. If you have suggestions or anything you want to discuss, if there's more supplements that you would recommend, please leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Any topics that you'd like to hear future episodes on, I would also love to hear that. Like, comment, share, subscribe, do all the things, and leave reviews, all the fun stuff. So let's recap. We talked about stress. We talked about what it is, what causes it, your body's reaction to it. We talked about good stress, bad stress, how to induce stress, how to reduce stress, things to do long-term, things to do short-term, and some supplements. I think that about covers it. I hope you found value in this. I hope this was super helpful. And I'm going to go do life. Oh, no. I just realized that I left my sunglasses on this entire episode. Oops. Yeah, sorry. Here's my face. Happy you're listening to this audibly anyway. So anyway, have a great day. Go do life.